Welcome back. We are on episode 3 of the Thriving Inside the Thin Blue Line podcast. Today we have Deborah. I'm super excited to meet Deborah. She has a whole world of experience I'm excited to get into. And actually, I'll let you say hello, Deborah, and tell everybody a little bit about you before we jump into the first question.
Oh, sure. My name's Deborah Green. I've been in law enforcement for about 30 years, or was in law enforcement for about 30 years. Started life as a communications specialist in the Army, and then became military police officer with my one and only deployment being in the for the LA riots. So that was far, far, far away. I don't think, were you even born
I was
then?
actually. I was.
Oh my gosh. And so in my the end of my military career and the beginning of my law enforcement career, civilian law enforcement career, kind of overlapped a little in 1992. So when I got deployed to LA, I was in the academy for dispatch for Sacramento Police Department. When I came back from LA, I it was the end of my enlistment. So I just got out of the military and continued on with dispatch. Released after 11 months with SAC PD and then hired in 1994 with El Dorado County Sheriff, and that's where I retired from. Kind of in a nutshell. There you go.
Yeah, lots of experience there. Yes, I was alive in 92, not old enough to probably know what was happening, but I was at least on planet Earth at the time. Awesome. A lot of good stuff to get into. So, what I ask everybody when we start this podcast, and we kind of just let the conversation flow from there, is what does it mean to you to thrive inside of the thin blue line, which for you would be gold for most of it?
So how to thrive? Oh my gosh. I came from the days of suck it up, buttercup, and um, there wasn't much thriving back in those days. You either pushed all your feelings down into the bottom of the barrel and just continued on. In 2015, though, I started a mental health journey after my open heart surgery, which um, I think thriving within within dispatch meant taking care of myself first and getting that mental health care and the coping skills and everything to finish out my career. And about then is when it started the environment started changing for the better, I think.
Yeah,
So,
that's a big one.
yeah, very much so.
Okay, so you said a lot there. You said and I've actually come out and talked about this too, that the suck it up buttercup mentality no longer works. We're
No.
no longer dealing with suck it up buttercup, I feel like, because I still get that sentiment, even though I've since resigned on some of my old posts in uniform of, well, the job just wasn't for you, or it takes a special person to do the job, or this, that, and the other. And I'm like, yes and no.
Exactly. It does take a different type of person to be a dispatcher. Um, you have to, that multitasking, and I think women do it better than men, though the guys that I have worked with have been incredible. Um, but I think women do the multitasking a lot better and the keeping control of I called it herding cats. You know, you'd get, 15 or 20 guys out on the road and you'd have to know where they were and what they were doing at all times. And I think women do that better because we have kids and we have to keep track of who's doing what and when. So, and I'm sorry, I know a lot of people may disagree with that, but I have my opinions.
That's fine. We're not here to please other people. We're here to speak our truth. So, Yeah, I always say kudos to dispatchers. I never worked in dispatch, but I at least a couple times would go and sit back there with them and chat with them, or at least I was just telling my husband this the other day. One of the gentlemen who became a good friend of mine early on in my policing career was because I was on light duty on the desk, and he saw me up there and invited me back into dispatch. It was like a Saturday morning, nothing was going on. And I was like, sure, why not? Like I got nothing else to do. And he's like, I'll show you how, for us it was teletype, so it was all the returns.
Oh, yeah.
Application that ran all the returns and warrants and stuff. And he's like, I'll show you what we do. He's like, I'm not trained for main side yet, for dispatching yet, but I can walk you through what we do on teletype. And I was like, sure, why not? And listening to y'all like multitask and take a phone call while you're running a return, while you're like listen, like while you're transmitting over the radio, I'm like, oh my God, like I've seen this for 60 seconds and my head's about to spin off. Like I could not keep track of that myself. I know. So kudos to dispatchers because y'all, herding cats is a great analogy
Oh,
because
yeah.
you literally have so many things up in the air that you're trying to keep track of. And then when things like pop off, you have to figure out what to shut down and what to focus on
Exactly.
and those
It's
type of
it's
things.
it's quite the it's quite the profession. I had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the job.
That's awesome. So you said taking care of yourself first, and you had a part of your career, it sounded like 2015, if I was correct, when you
Yes.
started your mental health journey. So tell me more about what was happening in your life and what sparked that for you.
So, 2015, I was diagnosed with a aortic valve in severe stenosis. So what that means is it was calcified and there was a very tiny opening. So an aortic valve usually has a 1 inch opening, allows a lot of blood to come through. Mine had 1/4 square inch opening on it. I had known I had had a heart murmur since birth, but we weren't, they diagnosed it on the wrong valve. So I went in just for a routine, let's check up on you kind of appointment, and that's when they discovered it. Usually they discover this malformation of a heart valve at autopsy. So I think I was doing okay there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cardiologist looked at me when I walked into his office and said, "How are you vertical and how are you breathing right now?" And I went, I don't know. So yeah, so 2 months later I was in surgery. So April 20th, 2015 is when I had my surgery. Little beknownst to me, that type of surgery, when they put you on bypass, causes or can cause microbleeds in your brain, which results in a condition called post-perfusion syndrome, which basically amplifies any mental health condition that you have by 10. So I knew I had some form of depression, some form of anxiety. 6 months after this surgery, I was a mess. I went back to work 3 months after, and I had a lot of anger issues, basically PTSD symptoms, because it was. I mean, I had a major trauma to my body, um, a major trauma, well, not a major trauma to my brain, but a trauma to my brain, and it just amplified everything that I had. So I had some fabulous coworkers that kind of had an intervention with me, um, steered me towards the help I needed so I didn't get fired. And I had a therapist, and then I attended a lot of classes. So I went to depression, anxiety, work stress, you name it, I went to it. Um, and then found a support group within, I'm in a HMO system here in California that mental health care is part of their system, which is really good. So they have like groups that they had, weekly groups. So I had a weekly support group for almost 3 years. And within that, I learned all these coping skills, and um, they got me on the meds that I needed. So I was in the right direction. But the coping skills helped me with my job also, because you have these people that call that need to be calmed down, that are having a mental health issue themselves, and using the tools that I learned. to get them calmed down to get the information that we needed. So, it was a kind of a win-win when you think about it.
That's incredible. That's really cool that you went through this almost like near-death experience, or like from a doctor's eyes was like, how are you here? This is something we find on an autopsy. So that's really cool that they obviously found that before it became a severe problem for you.
Yeah, I was thankful.
And then you have, what was it? You said it was you're kind of like the anxiety and the depression was 10x. Was it your coworkers that first reached out to you?
Yeah, because they noticed it at first, but I wasn't noticing anything except I was a little angry.
Uh-huh.
And, I just thought, oh, it's the job. There was a lot of changes going on um at the time, and I thought, oh, it's nothing. I'll be fine. The other F word. And so yeah, my coworker said, something's wrong with you. And they had started disciplinary stuff with me. And so my coworker said, "You're gonna get fired. We need to direct you." So I went on what they call intermittent FMLA so that I could take the time off if I needed to take care of myself, and then started seeing, a therapist on a regular basis.
Wow. That's really cool that you had a support system in there that was able to step in and ask those questions of like, hey, we've noticed you're acting a little different. Things are getting a little bit tougher for you. Is there something we can do to help with that?
Right, right. And they did give me the EAP information at the beginning, and I went to one appointment with the EAP person and then realized I'm going to need more. I can't just do, they pay for what, 3 or 5 appointments. And I didn't want to pay out of pocket when I knew that I had the health insurance that covered it. So I just said, no, thank you, EAP, and just went to my health insurance and did it that way.
Yeah, I know those EAP programs. I've never personally gone through one, but it always seems like it's a good start, but it never gets you across the finish line.
No, not at all. And it's difficult because they're not trauma informed, or even they don't understand veterans or first responders. They're used to Joe Blow off the street. They're not used to, somebody having a trauma once a day rather than having a trauma once in their lifetime. So, it's difficult, and um having somebody that is aware is a plus also. Even though my therapist now, she's not, I've sort of made her culturally aware through time. Um, and the first therapist I had, I would spend the first half hour with her explaining the hierarchy of the department so that she would understand supervisors, managers, my lieutenant, my captain, all of that, because I was talking a lot about work. And it was be like a half an hour explaining this to her. I always thought maybe I should just write this down, bring it in, and here's the chart. Here's who I'm talking about. But I finally got one. She didn't care about all of that. She just wanted me to talk.
Yeah.
And that's what's important, is just talk. I don't care, she doesn't care about the hierarchy. That's good, and I've gotten a lot better since I've gotten this one therapist. So,
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective on that because I know a lot of military and first responders struggle to find culturally competent people.
hmm
Um, which obviously in my space with nutrition and fitness coaching programs, that's why I'm drawn to this population of people of first responders or women, even women in male fields, shift workers, things like that, who understand what the lifestyle is. Because if it's unfortunate, but it's like you either get it or you don't.
right.
And it's a lot more stress on the person to talk them through that process and educate them on that process to be like, I know you're trying to understand and you're doing the best you can, but you're just like, this things are not making sense. Because it's like a normal, like a female first responder going to a personal trainer in a gym and they're like, well, suck it up, buttercup, get here at 5:30 in the morning. And they're like, That doesn't
Uh,
fly every week. Those 9 million outside factors that interrupt that schedule week to week. So that's interesting that you, because I feel like I've done the same too. Like I have a counselor I've been with for, gosh, 8 years. Um, and even though she was not technically culturally competent, I think it was the same thing where we were able to find a middle ground. And actually, she's always happy to hear like the law enforcement side of things too, because then it helps her better understand and like you break through some of those myths too and like
oh yeah.
public misconceptions too. That they're just like, I thought it was like this. So I'm like, no, no, no. Let me let me break this down for you, type of thing. Yeah. That's cool. That's really awesome that you had a group of people that were able to help you.
Yeah, it just, I mean, I was very thankful. I was really very thankful for them. I
So
don't know where I'd be without them.
yeah, that's awesome. And I think, and especially from the law enforcement side of things, that's our profession tends to lack compassion for each other
Yes.
more
And
so than,
dispatchers eat their own. So,
yeah.
I was really thankful for having, and they were on my shift. So, when you have people that are that close, I mean, even if it's just at work, um, it when somebody can come up to you and say, "Hey, you're having a problem." I mean, that just doesn't happen in this community. So I was really lucky.
Do you feel like that was because the employer who you worked for had created that supportive environment, or do you feel like you just got really lucky with the group of people you were with?
I think it was just really lucky with the group of people that we had. Um, each shift kind of had its own little environment and so and we all kind of took care of each other even though, you know, there was a lot of there was still people that brought a lot of animosity into the environment, but we did the good.
Yeah. That's one of those things I took from a good friend of mine who's now a retired detective is the first thing she came into our academy. She told us, find your people.
Hmm. Find your people.
And that's one thing I put on repeat. Find your people because if you don't have those people, it's really hard.
Yeah.
Because
It's
that was
so
kind of,
hard to find trust people that you trust in this profession.
yeah, 100%. You mentioned that you learned some coping skills that not only helped you, but helped you on the job. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Um, so we had a mindfulness class, which kind of how to bring yourself down when you're in a panic attack and you have nobody that's around to help you. How do you bring yourself down? How do you ground yourself? How do you get yourself out of that cycle of thinking that occurs when you're having that? And so there was a few times where I had people having mental health issues that would call in that I could hear it. I mean, it was amazing. I don't know if you being on the street, if you could recognize that type of thing where it just, you could see it in their face, but, and I have to hear it. So you could hear that cycle of bad talk and all of this going on with them. And so you have to try and get information from these people when they're calling. So learning skills on how to snap them out of that cycle so that they can concentrate on what you're saying. What that was incredible. I know I think I did when Landy called and she was just hyperventilating and I said, "Okay, repeat these numbers after me." And I gave her like some random numbers and then when she was done telling me the numbers back, she was calm. It had completely snapped her out of it. So learning those types of techniques was awesome. Plus it helped me out too. There were several times that I've had panic attacks at home and had to get myself out of it. So, just learning those coping skills. And mindfulness meditations is always helpful. Um, if you're getting overwhelmed at work, just sitting and being calm at your station or, in your car, taking a few deep breaths. I don't know if anybody's learned tactical breathing or box breathing or just just taking a deep breath and a few times. Take 10 deep breaths and you're back down again. So just learning those techniques and being able to implement them in my life and then helping other people.
Yeah, that's so cool. I have a huge heart for mental health, and those types of calls. Those were the calls I always enjoyed working. And I started my career as a mental health case manager. And I worked there for like a year, and it was like drinking from a fire hose of just, I mean, you're spending an 8 hour day with people who are dealing with mental health issues and trying to help them work through that, or at least figure out
Right.
what they need in that moment. So that's, I mean, I love when I hear that. And sometimes on like TikTok or other places, you'll get like those dispatch calls where you hear the dispatcher of what's going on in the background. And that's, I give you guys so much kudos for that. Because if you can possibly calm somebody down before somebody shows up on scene, that's a huge win.
Oh, absolutely. That it helps, I mean it helps everybody out. You've got a calm person now that may not get shot accidentally or on purpose or whatever. You can talk these people down off the ledge a little bit until they get somebody face to face because the face to face is important also. So, if we can use our voices to do this and then help you guys out on the street, it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. Okay. So you said mindfulness. So kind of just breathing and being in the moment.
Correct.
That snaps you out of kind of like that overthinking type. Your brain starts running away
Hmm.
from you, is the way I would describe it. Is that accurate?
Yeah, there's an actual like a cycle that thoughts, actions. I'm sorry, I don't have my stuff with me, but there is an actual cycle. Um, and if you do something physical different, or you can do something mental different to break this cycle of thoughts that are going through your head that is what causes the anxiety and the depression and everything like that. And if you just break one thing, it helps.
Okay. So you're finding like the interrupter
Right. Kind of like, I don't know, Caesar Milan and his shh, where he tells the dog shh.
snaps you out of it. Yeah.
I think it's more like changing the radio station.
Okay.
I mean, I used to do that on the way to work. When I could feel myself getting panicked, and I literally switch the radio station, find something different, and
That's
it
a
would actually work.
that's really cool. That's a cool small tip for somebody who even is like, oh my gosh, like I kind of feel this way. Like they haven't really gone down the path of getting help yet. But if they're like feeling anxious or something, just something as simple as changing the radio station.
Yeah, changing that song, changing it to talk radio, get it off the news. I don't recommend listening to the news right now. Just listen to happy music.
Yes. Yes, that'll get you off of down a rabbit hole in and of itself.
Yes.
That's really cool. I like those small takeaways. I like to try to find those small takeaways for people. So it sounds like you had your own struggle from the physical side of things. One thing I was going to ask, do you feel like you said you were born with the heart murmur? Do
Hmm.
you think anything as far as any type of stress that you experienced on the job contributed to that at all?
Oh, I'm sure of it. Plus, I smoked, I drank. Um, I when they found it, I had just lost 50 pounds. My husband and I went on a thing, and I had just lost the year before, lost a lot of weight, which actually probably helped. Um, but I could feel things going on. I had been in 2015, I had been in 21 years. So, um, yeah, I think it contributed a lot to how I ended up getting that surgery then.
Were there any warning signs that you could feel that were before that
Absolutely
happened?
none.
Oh,
There
wow.
were none. Other than, when you have a heart murmur and those people that understand this, when you run, you have a problem catching your breath. So that was me all my life. Was, if I ran, I had problems. I couldn't even run a straight 2 miles without stopping and walking. Even in the military, I never got to where I could run 2 miles straight. So there was something wrong, but afterwards I have felt so much better. I can take a deep breath while I'm running, and I could run, you know, I could run a 5K without stopping afterwards, and it was just a good feeling afterwards, finally getting physically fixed.
Yeah. That's interesting because when I wrote, I don't know if we had this conversation, but I wrote a book called Thriving Inside the Thin Blue Line, and I can get you a copy if you're interested. Um, One of the statistics I found in that is in 2022, I think it was about 42% of line of duty deaths were from health related issues. And a lot of that, I think, is attributed to like years of that stress that builds up and
Oh,
builds up and builds up.
absolutely. After this happened to me, I made sure there was a lot of guys that I was worried about. It's like, there's you shouldn't be red in the face all the time and look like you're busting out of your collar. And so I was always like, if you feel even a little bit strange, get to the doctor. And they'd all like look at me like I was strange, and it's like you don't realize how close I came to death. I was very close. So, and then I didn't have the physical kind of job that they did.
Right. Yeah, it goes back to the I'm fine, this is normal.
Yes, the other F word.
Yeah, that type of mentality until you don't realize it until it's too late that you're like, ooh, this stomach bloating issue or fill in the blank or my joint pain or my skin issues or
Right.
all of these other things meant that my body was screaming at me something.
Yes. Mine would manifest into when I was really stressed out on my knuckles, I would get all these like little bumps just from stress. I mean, it was like I had acne on my hands, and I'm going, where is all of this coming from? And it was stress. So, I mean, it manifests so many different ways in so many different people. And, you don't want that.
Yeah. So it sounds like you said you went 21 years in your career field before you really realized what the stress had done to you, essentially.
Right. Right. And then, so after that, I went 4 years. Um, and then my HMO canceled the support group that I was in. They completely just said, okay, we're done. And what do you do after that? There's no direction. They didn't say, oh, here's a mattress that you can land on. No, they just pulled the rug out from underneath us. And I mean, I was so upset I left the group early. I said, I can't handle this. What is going on? So, I had to take stock and figure out what was going on. Um, made appointments with my therapist again, and we continued on. Um, then in late 2019, I had an officer involved shooting, which I lost my deputy October of 2019. So that sent me into a brand new trauma.
Hmm.
Um, and the department did all the right things for the short term. So we had all the critical stress management, we had the therapists available to us, whatnot. But and I did emergency therapy sessions with my therapist along with the ones the department supplied. And I utilized peer support because that's what it's there for. But I eventually started getting symptoms of PTSD again. And then we went to late 2019, this is all happening. And then in March of 2020, we had COVID. And you're sticking a person who needs to get outside, who needs to go see people, and shoves them in a box. for, good Lord, I think it was 10 months. We
Yeah.
were we were inside. And so there again, I went down that my supervisor wasn't trauma informed, and she took me down the disciplinary route again. And luckily there was another supervisor there that said, wait, something's going on. And she took over me, I guess. She said, "Oh, you're no longer her supervisor, I am." Even though I was on a completely different shift. I got sat in the office with a stack of paperwork for workman's comp, and she said, "Fill this out and get this done. We're getting you some help now." Almost a year after. Um, then my psychiatrist signed me off of work in October of 2020, and that was the last time I was in dispatch. So if I hadn't had all the mental health education and therapy already, I couldn't imagine where I would have been at. I could have lost my job. It was that bad.
That's crazy how much, and I've seen this too, from a former coworker who was in a shooting. He was shot. It was through the arm, so it was a relatively minor injury. It wasn't life-threatening. But watching the PTSD that he went through afterwards, and it was one of those things that he kept so much to himself that nobody really knew what he was going through.
Right.
And thankfully, my husband is somewhat good friends with him and was able to talk with him because, of course, he was on light duty too. So he was like further separated
Right.
from everybody other than seeing him like in the squad room a couple times a week. Um, he was to the point where he's like, I'm about to take unpaid leave because I don't want to go back to patrol. And I was like, whoa, like we went from 0 to 100 here with like all of a sudden this is a major issue of like you're having problems going back to patrol. And it's so sad to see how that affects. We go to the job not like we know we're going to be in front of all of these things.
Right.
And there's not a whole lot on the back end of it to be like, hey, this is how you get through a 20-year career. We're probably going to have
Right.
on average X amount of critical incidences or things you're going to see that are going to replay in your head a couple times a year. How do we get through that as
Yeah,
a
they do
an
the
organization?
physical. I mean, you train, you do your workouts before shift. You're trained on how to shoot a gun and arrest procedures and how to deal with people out on the street, but nobody explains to you on day one that you're going to, and it's not an if, it's a when, that you are going to have mental health issues.
Yep.
You may get out of that 20-year career and not have had a therapist, and you might be okay, but you're not that person that joined 20 years prior. You have changed. And a lot of it will come out, a lot of alcoholics, a lot of drug addicts, that self medication, sex addicts, you
Yeah.
name it, we got it. And nobody explains to anybody when they sign up, when they're hired on day one, that, you need to start dealing with your mental health now. And that's what we should change is day one, tell them, find your therapist, find that person that clicks with you. If you have to go through three or four, then do it. But find that person and go see them two or three times a year, four times a year. And that way, when the poop hits the fan, you have somebody you're established with that understands you and can help you through it.
Yeah. I like that you're saying like day one, like figure out who your therapist is, get your insurance set up, figure out who's in network, like all that fun stuff that you have to go through.
Yep,
Um, but figure out who you can go see who's covered, who it's maybe like a minimal copay every once in a while. Hey, we hopefully have FSA and HSA for the right too, because then it's already taken care of. You already got the money and you're in the card in your hands. Uh,
exactly.
to go get a therapist. Yeah, I'm a huge advocate of that because I by default did that when I first started in law enforcement. And I think it was, well, I had lost my father. My dad passed when I was young, so that's kind of why I went into therapy myself. I was dealing with that loss and like the kind of the family dynamics after that. But I was so glad that I had that ready when I got into law enforcement because then, of course, the job and the career brought on a whole other host of challenges, and then you're balancing that with also like your personal life challenges too,
Oh,
because it's
yeah.
not just one-sided ever.
Yeah. And I'm on husband number three, so, do with that as you will. So, yeah, I mean there's relationships, there's kids, there's all these other outside stressors that come in too, and you're just trying to, I mean, I felt um in 2019 I just felt like I was hanging on by a thread and nobody understood it. And it was hard to swim my way to the top and get some air.
Yeah.
It really was.
What broke that cycle for you when you felt like you were hanging by a thread?
Well, I had the therapist and I had a lot of people at work that were very supportive of me back then, but the one supervisor that finally said, "Oh, you're done," rather than making me make that choice, having somebody make that choice for me kind of like took that burden off of me. But, just saying that, hey, we can go this route and see if we can get you better this way. You know, um, Not that I, 6 months later had to make the choice to retire because I was deemed permanently disabled um, from working in dispatch, working in law enforcement. So making that decision to actually retire was a really tough one, but I'm glad I did it when I did.
Yeah. That's interesting. So like we talked about those interrupters before. And that's really cool to see that you had a good leader within your circle of people that was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm gonna get you help." Because we
Yeah.
don't a few people sometimes we might see within our agencies, but it's really tough for somebody to really step up and be like, "Hey, come with me. We're gonna get you help." I honestly, it's sad. With the agency that I was with, I don't know that many people did that. And even if you did step in to help somebody, they're like, "No, no, no. I'm good. I'm fine." Back to the I'm fine thing.
Oh yeah, kicking and screaming.
Yeah, but it does. It takes somebody to step up and be like, "I see there's something going on with you. Here's where we can help." And it's still, I mean, it still ends up being your decision of what you want to proceed with. But for that person stepping in, it probably wasn't the conclusion that you would have gotten yourself to, though. I assume.
No, because I was very stubborn and hard-headed, and I was actually 3 years from when I had planned to retire. So it was kind of like when I finally made that decision, it was, do I want to be worse than I am right now in 3 years and be miserable for 3 years just for 20% on my retirement? Or do I want to get out now, take care of myself, enjoy my life, not have the possibility of maybe committing suicide down the road? Because I was having those thoughts, and there was a lot of pros and cons, but in the end, it was like I'm just going to step away because everybody was younger and faster, and I didn't want to be the one holding people back. So I just said, let's go live life and go get myself fixed. And that's what I did.
Yeah, that's a huge decision, and that's one that I talk about often is trying to encourage those who feel stuck in the profession. And a lot of times they're stuck because they're waiting for that pension,
Hmm.
because they're like, it's the countdown's on. Or they're like, I'm vested at 10, I got 10 left to go. Or it's like, I'm at 5, I'm hanging by a thread. But if I get X more years, then I have the X amount of money in the bag. And to me at that point, I know it's probably a huge struggle to figure that out because you're not only closing a chapter of your life, of 20 plus years that you've spent, but it's also this is not how I envisioned my career ending.
Right.
Or it's kind of like you lose yourself in maybe chasing a money bag or something like that, but then not being able to enjoy it once you hit that finish line.
Right. Right. And now I'm able to enjoy my grandchildren and enjoy family time and um I do have a part-time job that's so far away from law enforcement that it's nice and I get to talk to well-adjusted adults during the day rather than everybody that's on their worst day. So, I am thankful that I did retire when I did.
Yeah. So that's where we hit. You're one decision away from a totally different life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we rise by lifting others, but first we must lift ourselves. That's what you started with, as far as what does it mean to thrive to you is taking care of you, which is
Yes.
really cool to see that because of that experience, it helped you to be better on the job and
Yes.
better help other people. And then it also better gave you a foundation when that critical incident hit for you in dealing with the loss of life and the words that you hear on the other end of that whole thing happening. And then eventually led you to, again, trying to prioritize yourself in your future
Right.
so that now you're living the life that you genuinely wanted to live post career.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Actually, I think I'm doing much better.
Yeah, yeah, gosh, don't let me make it smaller. Celebrate that shit.
Yeah, 2022, I wanted to do something. I felt I was ready to go get back and help people in law enforcement rather than just say stay silent about what I went through. So I had this wonderful guy with First Help. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Um, so I contacted them and said, "Hey, you guys do trainings. What can I do to help you guys? What can I do?" And he says, "Well, we don't have anything right now, but we have a podcast." And I went, "Oh, really?" So that's where I started. Um, just telling my story on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I kept going until I got one person that contacted me back. And I said, "Wow, I found that one person. Let's try for two." And so I've just kept going, telling my story on different podcasts. And it's something that I can do from home.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to go out. I care for my autistic grandson during the week. So I just wait till nap time and he's sleeping and I can do this. And so I'm getting a twofer.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I was super excited when I heard from you to try and you're like, hey, I've got a story to tell. I'm like, yeah, let's go. It'll help somebody. Um,
And last January, I started doing videos on TikTok. Um, and it's where the sidewalk ends. And literally there's a little fence there where our sidewalk ends at the end of our walk or at the middle of our walk. And I just said, "You know what?" And I pull stuff that I see off Twitter and off Facebook, just little sayings and stuff just to help people out because there's always that one person that, you know, maybe needs that word of encouragement that day.
yeah.
So,
Have you
and
thought
it's
about writing
fun.
a book?
It's on the computer. There's little tiny bits and pieces everywhere. So, when I get a minute, if I have an idea, I just type away. I may need somebody to come in and just go through it and put it all in order for me, but it's getting there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I think that would be great. That'd be awesome for other people to be able to have your story in their hands and be able to read through it. I know with my book, I've gotten a lot of people who have contacted me who've said, like, thank you. My story is now validated. And I thought I was crazy for feeling the way that I did.
Yeah. It's nice to know that there are people out there that feel like I did. and I want to be that person that I never had when I went through all of this, that somebody can listen to and say, "Oh, wait, I'm not alone anymore."
100%.
And, that's all it is. If I just have that one person, it's all been worth it.
Yes. I love that. Well, this was a great conversation. This is really cool. I think you have so much value to share, and you shared a ton already just in the last 45 minutes that we've been here. Um, but so glad you reached out to be on the podcast because I think you definitely exemplify everything that I try to highlight. Um, we rise by lifting others. You took your story in your own hands and figured out how to heal, and now you're able to give
Yes.
back and help other people. And that one decision you made, it was a tough decision to step away, but now it opened more doors for you so that
Yes,
you can continue to help people and you're enjoying life post law enforcement and post career and you
I
can do
am.
you can do anything you want now.
Well, maybe not everything, but
Most things.
I'm enjoying it. I'm always telling everybody my grandson probably saved my life and gave me something to wake up for in the mornings because he was born a month before I left dispatching, and we've been together ever since. I watch him Monday through Friday, and just, you know, the challenges he gives me have been helping with my healing. Just learning to be patient and, and then the things that I learned have helped him. So, it's kind of a win-win. Plus, we're best buddies.
That's cool. That's cool to hear. Yeah, you stepped away from one thing and you two get to help each other in different ways.
It's wonderful.
That's cool. Well, Deborah, if somebody hears this and they want to reach out to you, what would be the best way to contact you?
If you go to Instagram, which is the easiest, because my link tree is the easiest to access from Instagram for some reason. I'm at D911 Green.
Okay.
I'm on YouTube. I am on TikTok. I am on LinkedIn and Twitter. Sorry, X. I'm forever gonna call it Twitter. Sorry.
Okay. Cool. I'll get all those links from you and I can link them so people can find
Oh
them.
yeah,
Um,
definitely. But I'm always available, and I love to chat because I have nothing else to do right now. I'm enjoying life. I enjoy the getting outside and taking walks and just being able to breathe again, is has been amazing. But now that I can share this with others and maybe help somebody that's struggling.
yeah. Well, kudos to you. That's an incredible story. I knew as soon as you sent me a little quick bio, I was like, whoa, we got a lot here. That's going to be great. Great to chat about,
There's
unpack, but
there's
that's
a lot
incredible.
to unpack.
Lots of good things. Lots of good things
Oh
that will
yes.
that
Oh
will
yes.
for sure be helpful. Awesome. Well, hang out for me.
Oh sure.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks for having me. This was great.
Yeah. If you all listening to the podcast would like to contact Deborah, I'm going to link her stuff in the description. Would love to hear your feedback, comment, like, subscribe, all the good things so that I know what you all are looking for on upcoming episodes. Thanks again, Deborah, and everybody stay safe out there.